Hello everybody, and welcome to episode 6 of Wheel Trouble's Let's Play Battletech. Uh, Sorry, it's been a long day at work, so if I'm tripping over my own tongue, that's why. The last episode, we got to meet the mech warriors. Today, we're going to go ahead and spend some time in the mech bay with Yang.
What can I do for you?
Hey, boss, welcome to the mech bay, my own little piece of heaven right here on the ship. Something I can help you with? I want an assessment on the Leopard. How much trouble are we in? Dunno, I mean, we're doing okay for the moment, but give it a few months, maybe a year. You know how it goes, eventually everything falls apart. Maybe our drive systems will give out, maybe some debris will perforate the hull, who knows. But on that day, we're gonna need to be able to cover our repair costs. If we can't, well, that'll be that. Got a few questions about the mech bay. Yeah? Then hit me with them. I'll do what I can to answer. I mean, I don't want to wax poetic or nothing, but the mech bay is where the magic happens, boss. It's the beating heart of the mercenary outfit. And here we've got the little tutorials. We've got the mech bay, mech storage, components, repairing damage, and a few other things. We'll go through all of them in this episode. Anything I should know about the mech bays themselves? Beyond each cubicle holding one battle mech, not much. It's all about capacity. The more mech bays we have, the more mechs we can keep battle ready. And the more mechs we have battle ready, the more flexibility you have in your deployment options. Let's say we had two blackjacks, for example. One moment. Don't you hate it when you have to sneeze but can't? Anyway, I'll keep reading, and I'll just try to mute before I sneeze again. Let's say we had two blackjacks, for example. A decent medium, for sure. I know your family gave you yours. One could be loaded out with lots of energy weapons for use in colder environments where they can bleed heat quickly. The other, identical blackjack, could be loaded out with ballistic weapons that require ammo, but generate much less heat. Smart for deploying in warmer climates or in a vacuum where heat dissipation is slower. Makes sense. Okay, why use mech storage? A few reasons. First, we have limited capacity in the mech bay, so we need to store the overstock for eventual sale or for use in the future. Second, we don't pay upkeep costs on the mech in storage. That's a business thing, though, not my department. Third, and this is important, whenever we pick up a partial mech salvage from the battlefield, I put it in storage for you. If we gather or buy enough partial mech salvage to complete a battle mech chassis, my team will assemble it right away. You let me know if you want to keep it in storage or have it readied for combat. Battle mechs are expensive as hell, so assembling one out of salvage is our best bet for expanding our roster. What happens to a mech when it goes into or gets readied from storage? When you send a mech chassis into storage, our mech techs dismount all of its weapons and equipment and place them in your inventory for use on other chassis. A chassis can stay in storage indefinitely. And don't worry about storage capacity, boss. I'll make it fit, don't you worry. Now, getting a stored battle mech ready for combat job is a different animal. My techs will need a couple of days to bring an empty chassis up from storage. Once the chassis is back in the mech bay, you'll need to select its loadout from our equipment inventory so we can start a refit. The time and cost of a refit is dependent on the type and amount of equipment you choose. Let me ask you about something else. I've been wondering about the components you can put on our mechs. One of my favorite topics in the mech bay, One of my favorite topics. In the mech bay, you can browse all the equipment we have available in our inventory. There are two types of components I can install on battle mechs: weapons and equipment. Tell me about ballistic weapons. Okay. And I'm gonna go through these guys. I know those of you who've been with me already know what these are. This is more for the people who are new to my channel. Ballistic weapons, such as the autocannon, pack a good punch, generate little heat, and can destabilize an enemy if they hit enough. But ballistic weapons are, ballistic, so they require ammo, and ammo can explode if it takes a hit in combat, which is bad news all around. Ballistic weapons are also pretty heavy and can take up a lot of space on a mech. Strengths and weaknesses, boss. Strengths and weaknesses. Tell me about energy weapons. Energy weapons don't use any ammo, but they generate a lot of heat. You may need to invest in additional heat sinks. Keep your mech cool if you choose an energy-heavy loadout. That's just kind of a weird sentence. You may need to invest in additional heat sinks. Keep your mech cool. I think they kind of edited that one wrong. Oh well, it still works. We know what he meant. Since they're intense beams of coherent light, energy weapons are great for cutting things up, but they aren't much good at destabilizing an enemy. The particle projection cannon is one of the big exceptions to that rule. In addition to a massive amount of damage it can inflict, a hit from a PPC can destabilize an enemy, maybe even slow it down a bit. The PPC generates a metric shit ton of heat, but it's worth it, boss. If that wasn't enough, it has a mild EM punch that screws with the enemy's targeting systems. Good to know. Makes sense, though. Missile weapons are my favorite. Yeah, they require ammo and generate moderate heat, but the pounding they can deliver can destabilize an enemy faster than most other weapons, and having multiple projectiles in a shot means you're almost always guaranteed at least a single hit. Long-range missiles are also capable of indirect fire. If one of your units has line of sight on an enemy, it can act as a spotter for LRM-equipped units that don't. With a spotter, a mech equipped with LRMs can stay behind cover and arc its missiles to hit the enemy. A spotter can increase your launcher's effective range, too. Granted, the enemy can do the same to you, but that's someone else's problem. Yeah, mine. Thanks, Yang. Tell me about support weapons. Support weapons are lighter than the others. Small lasers, machine guns, that kind of thing. I programmed our targeting computers to automatically fire them after a melee attack if they're activated. Which is a nice little feature. Let's see. Tell me about the other types of equipment you can refit on a mech. I probably could have read that one section, but oh well. It's a big list, boss. I suggest you check the store in every system we travel to. You never know what you'll find. I can install stronger cockpits to reduce the injuries our mech warriors will take, arm actuators that increase melee damage, range finders that increase the range at which enemies can be visually acquired, all sorts of stuff. I'll take up critical slots on a battle mech. Add some weight too. Keep your eye open for them and give them a good once-over before you buy one, so you know what you're getting into. Now, putting powerful weapons and equipment on your battle mech is fine and all, but remember the trade-off is always armor. You know how they say the best defense is a strong offense? They aren't on the battlefield. Don't skimp on the armor, boss, or all that expensive equipment will get reduced to junk with the enemy's first salvo. He's not wrong. My favorite thing to do is usually max out the armor first. As you guys saw, for those of you that stuck around for my MechWarrior 3 stuff. I heard that some manufacturers have developed better versions of some weapons. True that. Different manufacturers tweak their weapons to deliver more damage, have higher accuracy, destabilize the enemy, a bunch of stuff. The trick is finding them. They're rare out here in the periphery, so when I see one in a store or salvage pile, I always mark it with a plus for you so you can identify it easily. And some equipment is rarer than others. The more plus symbols I mark them with, the rarer and more useful they are. Keep your eyes peeled. You never know what you're going to find. Let me ask you about something else. Okay. Looks like we're on repair here, repairing damage. As you can see, there's quite a bit on him here. How do I repair mech damage after a battle? Whenever you return from a mission, stop by the mech bay here to tell me which mechs you want me to have repaired. I'm not going to assume anything. You run this outfit, so you tell me what to spend time and money on. Okay, that's not completely true. If I see armor missing from a battle mech, I'm going to repair it automatically. It's standard operating procedure. And we have so much scrap armor lying around that you should consider armor repairs to be free. Now, if you tell me to repair a mech containing destroyed equipment, the techs will strip that off automatically too. I'll list the equipment they strip, but you're going to want to replace it with something. That's where refit comes in handy, guys. Anyway, like I was saying, armor repairs are free. Internal structure, on the other hand, takes time and C-bills to fix. If a mech structure is damaged or missing, I'll flag it for you in orange. Just order the repair, confirm the time and cost, and I'll get it into our work queue. What if I want to change the mech's loadouts? Can I refit it with new weapons and equipment? He kind of already answered this, but this is a tutorial, so... Ooh, now you're talking, boss. You bet I can refit a mech. You can repair it at the same time, too. Just select a battle mech and order the refit. That'll bring it to the mech lab. What can I do in the mech lab? The mech lab is where you let me know what sorts of modifications you want to make to our stable of battle mechs. I can install new weapons and equipment, add or remove armor location by location, pretty much anything you want. All it takes is time and money. We've got plenty of both, right? Time, yes. Money, no. Are there limits to how I can refit a mech? It's hardware, Shrike. Of course there are limits. Your biggest constraints are the chassis weight and its hard points. I can't make a mech as heavy as I want? Negative. A mech's chassis can support only so much tonnage in weapons and armor and equipment, so you need to keep its overall weight in mind when designing a loadout. If your design is over a chassis' weight rating, we can't accept the work order. Now, there are ways of making things fit, of course. What's a hard point? Oh, sorry. Trade-offs can be made, but you've got to be careful. We have the ability to remove armor from its individual locations in order to squeeze more or bigger weapons on, but the less armor is less armor. You don't want to wind up with something that'll blow over in a strong breeze. Trust me on that, I've seen it happen often enough to know. What's a hard point again? Each location on a battle mech contains one or more weapons mounts called hard points. Hard points are designed for one specific weapon type: ballistic, energy, missile, and support. However, most mechs contain locations with more than one hard point, so you have some flexibility in what you mount there. Okay, let's go back for a minute. There's something else I need to ask. How do I know what a mech is good at in the first place? Great question. There are a lot of different battle mechs out there, and it's hard to know what they were built to do best just by looking at them. I mean, I can, of course, but I'm me. You, on the other hand, you're going to need some help. Thankfully, I'm a helpful guy. If you check your technical readouts in the mech lab, you'll find that I've included some thoughts about each mech's off-the-rack purpose, or stock role. They're only opinions, mind you, but you might find them useful. Sarna is also wonderful, as well as the mech lab app for the Android, if you guys are curious. What happens after I've provided an itemized list of the equipment that's on a mech normally carries when you buy it as stock. Think of it as a mech's basic recipe. Okay, there we go. Now moving on. Once you confirm your work order, it'll be placed in a queue with the other repairs and refits on your timeline. Remember, a mech will be unavailable for combat until its work order is complete, so plan your refits carefully. I suggest queuing them up before we head to the next system to use our travel time efficiently. If you want to change a mech's placement in the work queue, select Manage Tasks under Timeline to reprioritize or cancel work orders. How long do repairs and refits normally take? Depends on the mech bay condition you're working in. A good mech bay with advanced scaffolding and equipment is faster than the one you'll find on a standard Leopard. I display our mech bay's efficiency and the mech tech points on your travel display under the finances and crew morale readouts. The higher the rating, the faster the repairs. Let me ask you about something else. Sure thing, be my guest. Heat stability and modifiers. You seem to know your way around a battlefield, Yang. Any advice? Sure, the better you lead in combat, the less work I have to do when it's over. Let's talk about heat. Yeah, let's talk about it. I can't emphasize this enough. Watch your heat. Your mech warriors are sitting on walking fusion reactors out there. Using jump jets and firing weapons generates heat, sometimes lots of it. If one of your mechs gets too hot, You could do damage to its internal structure or worse, shut down the engine in the middle of combat, leaving it a sitting duck. How can I affect heat in combat? Each weapon system on a battle mech can be toggled on or off each time it takes an action. Most mech warriors keep their heat low by toggling off weapons with lower chances to hit. But sometimes, you'll have a solid chance to hit with everything in your arsenal. That's when you've got to experiment by toggling a few off to make sure you stay below the red line. And watch the terrain. Moving your mechs into water or over ice helps cool them down too. How can I make a mech more heat efficient? Heat sinks. Note your mech's heat rating in the mech lab, and install more heat sinks on it if you find that it runs hot in combat. See? Self-explanatory. Heat sinks vent plasma from the mech's engine and do a lot to dissipate the buildup from jump jets and weapons fire. Heat sinks are your friend. You can also change the weapons on the mech to use more heat-friendly parts, but obviously that'll change how you use the mech in combat. Trade-offs, boss. It's all about trade-offs. Let's go back for a minute. There's something else I need to ask. Let's talk about a mech's stability. Yeah, stability is a smart thing for a commander to understand, boss. Getting pummeled by weapons fire is a good way for a mech to become destabilized. Walking over rough terrain doesn't help much either. Destabilized mechs can't sprint in combat, and they're vulnerable to falling if hit hard enough while in that state. Tell me how to make my battle mechs less vulnerable to weapons fire. That's important. There's a few things I can think of: evasion, cover, and bracing. Let's hear about evasion. The short version is this: the farther a unit goes, the more evasive it becomes. Shooting a moving target is hard, and shooting a faster target is harder. When you order a mech to move in combat, note the number of angled chevrons your command software assigns it. The more chevrons that are displayed, the harder it will be to hit. Same for the enemy. Sensor locking an enemy removes 2 of its evasion chevrons and makes it easier to hit. Same goes for your units, so be careful. Okay, now let's talk about cover. Battle mechs are kind of big, aren't they? Yep, they're big and scary and dangerous, and they're harder to hit standing in forests and other big terrain features. Standing behind buildings or hills is good too. If the enemy can't see you, they're going to have a hard time hitting you. It's all about line of sight. Think about it. Think about it all the time. Your enemy is, I guarantee it, if they can see you, a little red eyeball will appear above them in your command software. So it tells you if they've got line of sight to you and vice versa. Mastiff taught me to brace my mech, but that doesn't make it harder to hit. No, bracing your mech won't make it harder to hit, but it should buffer some of the damage you take by half or so. Think about it, eh? Let's go back for a minute. There's something else I needed to ask. Yeah, sure, be my guest. Let me ask you about something else. Let's scroll down the list here, see what else he has to teach us. That's enough for now. Let's see. Sure, boss, we can pick it up later if you want. Now, we actually get to learn about him. Tell me a little bit about yourself. How'd you wind up with this with this group? That's a long story, boss. Shortest version I can give you: I signed on after I served my term in the Third Succession War, fighting for the Capellan Confederation. If you want to know more, you can ask whatever you want. Otherwise, let's get back to talking shop. Where are you from originally? Bryant, in the Confederation. You may have heard of our little claim to fame. The Crowley Lizard Cow? No? Well, trust me, they're delicious. Anyway, as the story goes, Bryant was a really nice place once. A tourist spot. Big with hikers and fishing enthusiasts, pale blue skies, emerald green seas, and a booming agricultural business. You know, the works. I never knew it that way, though. Stefan Amaris got to it a couple of centuries before I was born, and well, that was that. As the story goes, Bryant used to have these enormous orbital mirrors, storm inhibitors, he called them. The Star League put them in place. When Amaris took the system in his civil war, he had his troops use them for target practice. Without those mirrors, Bryant reverted to its natural state, a miserable little ball of wind-blown dirt, actively hostile to human life. By the time I came along, the only places where people could live in relative safety were the planet's poles. Of course, you can't fit a planet's entire population into a handful of cities at its poles. There just isn't enough space, no matter how far down you dig or how tall you build a building. A lot of people, mostly the poor, died in the early days. There's still a lot of overcrowding in Bryant's cities, even now. That's my childhood home in a nutshell. Way too many people jammed into a tiny claustrophobic space with nowhere to go but off-planet. I cleared out of there as fast as I could and never looked back. Gotta admit, though, I do miss the taste of lizard cow. Tell me about your time in the military. Who'd you serve with? This is kind of a dangerous question. The 2nd St. Ives Lancers, 1st Battalion under Major Ling. We saw more action than most. The arm is a souvenir of my time in the service. I lost the original back in 3010 on St. Louis. Sorry guys, like I said, it's been a very long day at work, so recording this is kind of just a therapy session for me more than anything. You know, when we first arrived at St. Louis, I loved the place. It's an agricultural world, sort of a basket for the neighboring systems. Green fields, rolling hills, you get the picture. We just walked out of hell on Kittery. The Fed rats drove us out in '05 with our tails between our legs, so it looked like paradise to us. Normally, I play the Davion side of things, and so I would qualify mostly as a Fed rat for most of my games, so I'm going to try not to take offense to this. The funny thing is he doesn't change that even if you were from the Federated Commonwealth. I remember kicking back in the mech bay, my feet propped up on an engine block, sipping a snifter of ambergris vermouth. Not a bad way to spend a sunny afternoon, getting drunk. Anyway, turned out the Federated Sons weren't done with us yet. We were barely a month into our deployment when they sent the to burn us out. I'm sure that there were sound strategic reasons for House Davion, but it sure felt personal to me. Long story short, one of their scouts managed to slip through our perimeter and hit my mech bay. I was tinkering around in a Centurion's custom-made rumble seat at the time. Being surrounded by all that armor is the only reason I made it out alive. Still, I didn't make it out unscathed. I lost 2 of my favorite assistants in my own right arm, and I've got this ugly thing grafted to me as a reminder. And yet, here I am, doing mercenary work for a living. Some people never learn, huh? Why'd you leave the Capellan Confederation? After my tour of duty was up, you mean? I don't know, it was just time for a change. Besides, the place wasn't for me anymore. In a way, it never really was. I learned a lot from my time in the service, got first-hand view of the elitist bullshit that saturates the Capellan culture, and how it rewards highborn idiots at the same common people's expense. Speaking as a thoroughly common man, that didn't sit right with me. When my tour was over, I walked away and never looked back. You never really get away from the aristocracy, Yang. Hell, I was born a noble. And honestly, you still get to click all of these. None of these really change the conversation here any. Yeah, but you're a competent noble. You're not afraid, or you aren't afraid to get your hands dirty. At the end of the day, that's all I really care about. I wonder how many times I watched talented engineers get passed over for promotion so some idiot with a title could advance. Too many to count. For what it's worth, I'm glad you walked away. You've brought my mech back from the brink more than once. Way more than once if memory serves. Still, I appreciate the kind words, and for what it's worth, I'm happy to be here with this crew. Going career military would have been an enormous mistake. In your position, I probably would have done the same. Let's talk about something else. I'd like to talk about something else. And there's nothing to talk about. Anyway, that's Yang.
Talk to you later.
Nice enough guy. He's the one who keeps us moving. So he's probably quite seriously the most important person on this ship. We want to take care of him as much as possible. We have one more person to really talk to. That's going to be Sumeyer down in navigation. We'll talk to her next time in episode 7. See you guys later. Wheel Trouble out.